Sheltered by Jesus podcast, and we're excited that you are watching, you're listening, and you're hitting subscribe because we need subscribers, and hit like. Even if I stink, hit like because the homeless will benefit from it. So please do that. If you want to support us, go to sheltersbyjesus.com, and for $9 a month, you can get a homeless person, a homeless family off the street. And today, with all this craziness in the news, you know there's a need, and you can help do that. We're 100% faith-based, so without your help, the folks on the street, we can't take them off. So welcome. And also, there's 4 books out, written by the dumb hick from Skowhegan, me, and written in Hickanese, the way I talk. And if you'd like those, they are 2 prices. $10 are free. And you get them by giving us your name and address on this, or you call the office at 207-474-8833 and say, I like Pastor Barry's books. 1 through 4, all of them, one of them, whatever. Just let us know. And if you'd like a tour, Seth Roberts will give you a tour. He's our chief of staff. Call our office at 207-474-8833 and say, I would like to see what this is all about. We have 23 children there right now, and coming and going. Who knows who'll be here by the time you get there, but we'd love to show it all to you. And now, here we are today, and I am so excited. I'm back in a church that we did on one other podcast. It is Grace Fellowship Church in Oxford, Maine. Woo-woo, that's right. We got a woo-woo in the background. But we're taking a whole different slant this time. We talked about former pastor, Pastor Waterhouse, who pastored till he's 91 and left, and he was here for 154.5 years. But now the church is in a situation where they need to change direction and take off, and we want to discuss that. What I want to discuss, and I hope you're going to like this, is what it's like to have a church in rural Maine and to get it off the ground, get it going. If it goes down, bring it back. But there's a lot of little churches in Maine right now, and you may be having one of them. And also, if you'd like to have me come and speak at your church, or you want me on my podcast, call my office. So anyway, I'm going to start right here with these guys. I'm going to start in the middle because this young man, Andrew, is working on a youth group in Oxford, right?
That's correct, sir.
So how can we integrate like youth groups into Grace Community? How can that all work, or would it work?
I think just reaching the kids at the teen centers, we're starting to interact with the parents. And I think it really starts there. I mean, it starts with just loving people. It's kind of what grew me to this church is I walk through the doors and I'm loved on as soon as I walk through the doors.
Amen. This is church has a heart, man.
That's what Jesus calls us to do. And if we start by that same love action and that heart, I think that spreads on its own. So,
and we're at the church, not picking on it, but it's growing old. Like most rural churches, we're seeing a lot of rural churches, a lot of elderly and not a lot of young people. You work with young people. What kind of things would you say attracts young people?
It's tough because every kid is kind of unique. It's a tough question.
I ask tough questions. That's what. That's my job, man. I ain't here to make it easy on you.
Yes. So you kind of got to meet them where they're at, almost like with the homeless. You got to hit them with a ham sandwich. With them, it's the video games. It's playing a game of pool with them. It's just sitting down with them and meeting them where they're at, and things grow from that point.
Okay.
So.
And you're in this is rural area in rural Maine. I can say it because I'm from rural Maine, but we're very independent people. Are we not? Sure. And so we have to find a way to encourage people that are a little independent to come without jumping down their throat, or tell them you got to dress this way or talk this way. Somehow they got to feel like they go through that door and welcome, but somehow we got to get them to the door because they won't, like you walked in and go, man, the hearts of these people showed up, but you came through the door. So how are we going to get them through the door? Now, this Betty is, you saw her last time. She's the widow of Pastor Waterhouse. Now, you've been here through a lot of the ups and downs. Even before you was married to Pastor Waterhouse, you knew about the church and what they were doing. What did he do? You had some young people here when I started coming.
We had over 100 people here.
So what was it that the church was doing then as a rural church that maybe it's not doing right now as a rural church? What would you say to that?
Well, that's a hard question too.
Well, I'm here to answer hard questions.
But I mean, when I first came, I walked through the door and my church had closed. I had been at for 27 years. So I was looking for a church and I came here. And people were just friendly and kind, and they just welcomed me, and I felt very welcome. And,
Okay, I'm going to stop you just a second. Andrew, take your mic off and tie it on her. We can pick you up because you're loud. She's kind of soft-spoken. I won't be able to pick her up.
Pick me up.
There you go.
This one?
I'm not going to literally pick you up. Don't worry about it. My wife would be upset with me if I was letting women
come on.
down.
There we
You
go.
find a place to take it? There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Now,
So what is the difference between then when the young people were here and now that you don't have young people? What is the difference?
well, they all grew up for one thing.
Okay. And
And-
so what you're saying is you didn't replicate what you were doing at that time that made the young ones come
Well,
in.
they had a lot of good music, different music back then, and
Okay.
and they had programs for the young people. So they were, then like I said, they all grew up. So we didn't get any after that,
Okay, that's a good point. So now tell them who you are,
My name is Bill Malay,
and you are
an elder of the church.
an elder in the church, and you've been here.
Off and on for several
You
years.
stepped off the ark
Not
on the
really.
dry ground.
I'm kind of a newbie
All right.
according to these guys.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've seen a lot. Was you here before? Was you here before Betty?
No.
No.
No. Okay. So, what have you seen that's different that when the young people are here than what's going on right now?
I think what I was saying, of course, the families were closer in here. A lot of people had to move for employment or this or that.
So you had some families move away.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's hard to replace them. But I think what the lesson I got from Pastor Waterhouse and what I was seeing is they were serving the community. It wasn't so much preaching to the community all the time, but they were cutting wood for those that couldn't do it themselves.
Okay.
They were delivering food. There was a lot of parties so it was a social get-togethers where you didn't necessarily have to go to church at first, but you get to know the people in the church, to trust the people in the church, to want what they had.
Okay.
And that's kind of what was working.
Well, in rural areas, that's what gets through to independent people. It's like when I was a kid, if somebody was putting in hay, they call my dad. They go, "We're putting up hay. We don't have help." They didn't hire any back then. There was the mom and pop farms, and Dad would say, "We'll be right over, man," because they'd say, "We'll put on a big supper. We haven't got no money." So Dad would tell us, "Jump in the truck, kids. We're going over. We're going to put in hay," and it made a bond. We weren't blood family, but we were close because of that. Then they were Grangers, and I ended up being a Granger, and I had no idea going to a Grange, but they were there. They go, "Oh, you like the food we're making here? Well, we make that at the Grange." I go, "Really?" I was a kid. They go, "Yeah," and we have a little dance and stuff, and I wasn't a church goer. I ended up being a Grange goer because it was something fun to do. I think one of our situations is we got to make church a little bit more fun. Now, if you're 104 years old, like most of us are here, all right, we can just go because it's church. If you've always gone to church, it's church. I want to find a church in town. I move in the area. That's a church. I'm a Baptist. I'll look for a Baptist. I'm a Pentecostal. Look for a Pentecostal. All right. But if in the area, and I'm not a church person like I wasn't, you can't reach me like that. I'm not going to just walk in because I'm a Baptist. I'm not coming in that way, right? Especially rural Maine. So I love what you're saying is look for some needs, go out and try to meet those needs. And people say, "Well, how am I going to find out?" What I would suggest is we go to a town office. They almost know all the poor people in town. And a lot of those people have been to the town office and say, "Can I get some help?" Right, Seth? We get a lot of calls on that. They say, "Well, call Shelters by Jesus," where we are. So we end up, because we get the homeless. But now we get non-residents because we got the homeless because they're related to the homeless and they're coming in, Like I said in the message today, that woman come up and I introduced myself. She says, "I know you don't have to introduce yourself. You're famous." And I said, "Well, I'm not famous, but the podcast is getting me well known." But then she says, "I came to hear you, but also my niece is in your shelter." Now, I didn't know
Ah.
that. But that drew her in, and they're planning on coming back because of the service. They like the service. They won't know if they like the service until they come to one, right? And that's so. What can you do? What? Watching this, not just you. I'm talking about the rural church now. I'm not talking about just Oxford. I'm not, Grace Fellowship in Oxford. It's included. But what can churches do that are going to get somebody to want to come through the door, to find out, like Seth and I find out in our travels. We just talked about it. So many of these little churches are so much alike. They got a heart of a family, but people don't know that because they haven't come through the door. What are the things that a rural church can do to get through the door? I'm going to just leave that open. Any one of you can pick up on that one. And don't tell me it's a hard question because I already know it is. All right. What do you, let me rephrase that. I'm a rephraser, right, Seth? I'm a rephrase. Say you just came to Oxford from another area and you don't know any churches. And you're thinking about, I wonder where I could go to church. What would get you to want to come and check out Grace Fellowship or some other rural church? What would it take to get you? Not because you're a 100-year-old Christian, but you're just coming into town. Maybe you're an early Christian, maybe you're not even a Christian, but you're thinking about going to church. What would it take?
I did that.
Okay, then lay it on me, man. Don't just sit there looking at me like you know what I'm talking about.
I moved to town, and I was a mile up the road where I bought a house. And
Okay.
I didn't know this church existed. One member of the church, Sandy, was talking to us. She worked for our veterinarian.
Okay.
And she said, "Oh, you live over by this church." We're going, "What church?" And driving by the road, didn't know it was here.
Ah.
And she said, "Well, I go there. And I like the church, and they have a good heart, and they do the right things.
Yep.
Why don't you try it?" Well, after being up the street for a year, we're saying, why didn't we go earlier? Why didn't we know about this sooner?
Yeah.
But when we came here, the openness and the love of the people, we never left.
But you had to get through the door to do that.
But somebody had to initiate it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that was a lady that, because she was a neighbor, got it. So what is it you can do as a church, even if they aren't your neighbor? And Andrew, there's families out there with young people, you know. How could they be approached to encourage them to come here? What kinds of things that a mom and dad may be looking for would come to a church to bring their kids? I know, tough question.
No. I think we live in such a culture right now where there's so much church hurt from past, and the churches haven't been the most welcoming.
Yes.
And we've just got to reestablish the church outside these walls.
I love that term, reestablish.
And yeah, and I think we just got to start showing our hearts outside the walls, and we just got to pour into these families with their needs.
Without thinking, look, I'm going to push church down your throat, because people,
Right.
independent Maine will back off like you just stabbed them with a spear, right?
Very touchy.
They are very, hey, I'm a Mainer, so I can say it. And I'm from a little community, Norridge Walk, Maine. You know, I'm from a blink in the road. I understand, because I'm one of those guys. You come at me and tell me what I should be doing, and I'm going to tell you just where you go. You can do whatever you're going to do, right? But if you come in and there's something going on and you want to help me with it, if I'm really hurting or whatever, and you come alongside, next thing I'm going to go is, why are you doing that? Well, I go to this church and this is what we do. How about giving us a try? And same way with the young people and all of that. So that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I mean, this church has so much potential, like a lot of rural churches do. And so I'm going to say this. If you're watching this, and you are watching it, that's what a dumb statement if you're watching this. I'm the dumbhead from Skowhegan, all right? But we need to, as small churches, we need to get together, put our heads together, figure out ways we can do some things in our community, not just with the idea of getting people in the church, which will be the fruits of that, but what can we do to initiate or reestablish ourselves as friendly, community friendly, not just churchy, and be welcoming. The other thing, the young people. Now, some of y'all, I bet some young people got tattoos or earrings or nose rings or butt rings or whatever rings, right?
There's a lot of earrings in places that
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
typically go.
Yes, because we see that all the time. Now, in my church, before we started the homeless shelter, you would have been met at the door and said, look, that stuff is no go. And that's why our church didn't see any salvations. That's why we didn't grow. We grew when we opened our arms and said, come on in. I can't see those things. All right? If the Lord don't want them on you, he'll convict you of it. If the Lord wants you in a dress instead of a pair of slacks, he'll get you to do that. But you know what? He really don't give a rat's behind about those things. That's what I'm finding out. He just loves that person. And when you can look by all that crap and just love that individual, they're going to come. I don't care if you're in Oxford, Maine or New York City. They're going to come, but that's how we've got to re-educate our people in our churches to look at things differently, especially the older crowd. I'm 74. I'm part of the older crowd, all right? I need to re-educate my generation. I'm sorry, but your generation too. Now, he's a baby.
I'm older than you.
He's a baby. All right, I got to re-educate your
I'm older than all of you.
Well, we're going to re-educate your group. Oh, man. So I'm running out of time on my thing, so.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, you
Pastor
can.
Waterhouse had this years ago. He never refused anybody in this church. Didn't matter. They had mentally challenged people.
Yep.
And he accepted them, and they loved him, and he always was that way. He never.
Well, that's
Judge
one of the
anyone.
reasons your church isn't what it was when he was here, because they're not doing what Pastor Waterhouse did. But we got, the right things to do.
Mhm.
But I just want to say this, guys. If you're in a small church, and some of you I know are struggling to find pastors, and some are just the leaders, the elders are doing it, whatever, that don't matter, because Jesus is still in your church. Don't use it as an excuse, I don't have a pastor. Let's be
Amen.
friendly to the community. Let God do his thing. The pastor thing will take care of itself. If God wants you to have a pastor, you'll get a pastor. All right? So don't worry about that. Step out. Don't say we're too small to be effective. We had 18 people left in our forward shelters by Jesus when it was Trinity Free Church. We got down to 18 people with no leadership. Jesus never left us. And Jesus built it. But we started treating the community and everybody differently than we ever did. And then now we've got this ministry. And we praise God for it. And that's what we got to do. And if you're in a rural church, step back and think about reestablishing yourself. I love that, Andrew. Reestablishing yourself as a church with a heart in your community. Because no small church is going to stay small if your heart is big and your God is bigger. All right, with that thought, all I want to say is this. You all come back now.